Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Criminal Justice Joint with Contracts. Please silence all cell phone electronic devices. Please do not approach the dais. If you wish to testify, you need to fill out an appearance card in the front of the room. If you wish to submit testimony via email, you may do so at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Once again, do not approach the dais. Chair, we're ready to begin.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Councilmember Sandy Nurse, and I'm honored to convene this joint hearing with the Committee on Criminal Justice and the Chair of the Committee on Contracts, Councilmember Julie Wan. Today we're here to examine the New York Department of Corrections contracting of jail services with a focus on transparency, accountability, and a fair treatment of people in custody. We will also be discussing introduction number 825, legislation that seeks to ensure detainees receive the remaining funds in their commissary accounts upon release. The city's contracting process is meant to ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent efficiently and equitably. However, recent reports raise serious concerns about how DOC procures services for commissaries, phone systems, and tablets within our jail facilities. The reliance on emergency, no-bid, and negotiated contracts, often with limited oversight, has reportedly led to inflated costs, service disruptions, and a lack of accountability from vendors. For example, the Keefe Group's commissary contract has been extended despite documented issues, included inflating prices, missing or expired goods, and a rise in grievances from people in custody. Similarly, DOC's phone contract with Securus Technologies has faced scrutiny for privacy violations and cost concerns. Beyond these systemic procurement issues, we must also address the millions in unclaimed commissary funds that remain in limbo, funds that rightfully belong to individuals who have been held pretrial without a conviction or who have paid their debt to society. Introduction number 825 aims to correct this by ensuring that funds are returned in cash at the time of release, preventing unnecessary delays and bureaucratic hurdles. So we look forward to hearing from you all and having a discussion. And now I will turn it over to Chair Wan to give her opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair Nurse, for co-chairing this hearing on essential services for people incarcerated in New York City's custody. My name is Julie Wan, and I chair the Committee on Contracts. Today, our committees examine contracts on vendors who provide inmates at jail cells with crucial links to the outside world and basic comforts. In particular, we want to take a look at the work done by Keefe Group, a national company that has provided commissary services at city jails since 2021, as well as Securus, which handles electronic communications and technology for inmates. The Department of Corrections began working with these outside vendors with the worthy goals of modernizing city jails, reducing risk of contraband, and improving services for inmates and their loved ones. But reporting in local outlets have raised questions about whether the new systems implemented by Keefe and Securus are working as promised, with serious consequences for inmates' comfort and civil rights. Possible shortfalls raise questions about whether these vendors are meeting their contract obligations or whether the Department of Corrections has been doing adequate oversight and accountability. City watchdogs have long raised concerns about these Department of Corrections contracts. The Keefe Group contract in particular has been subject to criticism from the comptroller, who has refused to approve the contract before being overruled by the administration. The city hired the Keefe Group during the early days of COVID-19 pandemic when city jails were racked by mass absenteeism, which created emergency staffing needs that had to be filled by outside vendors like Keefe. But as the crisis passed, the contract was renewed without a competitive bid. And in years since, local media have reported that commissary systems run by Keefe sometimes fails to correctly deliver goods or inmates or provide adequate refunds for botched orders, as well as price gouging. We want to understand why the Department of Corrections settled on Keefe without a competitive bid process and what kind of oversight has been done to ensure that the city gets the service to which it is entitled. Corrections officials testified earlier this year that the typical competitive bidding process wouldn't have been efficient in this case and could have disrupted commissary functions. By the system they have settled on is the subject of a record of volume of complaints. So how did they decide to stick with Keefe? Before we begin, I'd like to thank the committee staff, senior counsel Chris Sartori, policy analyst Alex Yablon, and finance unit head Owen Katowski and Jack Story for their hard work in putting today's hearing. I'll turn it over back to Chair Nurse and the Committee Council to administer the oath.
Thank you, Chair Wan. Also want to thank our committee staff, Natalie here. I want to acknowledge we've been joined by council members Bottcher, Marte, Narcisse, Ayala, and we have Councilmember Caban online. Now I'll turn it over to. Okay, we will now call representatives of the administration to testify. We'll be hearing testimony from the Department of Correction General Counsel James Conroy, Deputy Commissioner Nell McCarty, and Althea Samuels. Once you're settled, I will turn it over to Committee Counsel to administer the affirmation.
Do you affirm to tell the truth? Can you raise your right hands, please? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions?
Yes.
You may begin.
Good morning, Chairs Nurse and Wan, and members of the Committees on Criminal Justice and Contracts. My name is James Conroy, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Legal Matters and General Counsel for the New York City Department of Correction. The department partners with a network of experienced and dedicated providers to deliver goods and services, programmatic support, and skill building, and help in the transition back into the community for those in our care. Those vendors and the DOC staff who support them and enhance their work are a critical part of maintaining a safe and humane jail system with modern practices and amenities. The department currently has over 100 registered contracts covering a vast range of needs and services. Today, we would like to highlight 3 jail-based services in particular: telephone, tablet, and commissary services. The department works in close collaboration with the Mayor's Office of Contract Services, MOCS, on all matters related to procurement. The department follows established citywide procurement protocols and utilizes the city's passport portal in the same manner as other city agencies. Given the nature of our work and the vulnerable population we serve, we recognize the importance of transparency and accountability when selecting and partnering with vendors. Our goal is to ensure that the goods and services provided to those in our care are fair, valuable, and equitable. When selecting vendors that provide goods and services, the department carefully considers the associated costs. Unlike many other jurisdictions, the Department of Correction does not engage in revenue sharing with vendors, a common practice that can lead to predatory and exorbitant pricing. When selecting vendors and negotiating prices, the Department of Correction works to reduce or eliminate any type of fees where possible, and to ensure that pricing is in line with fair market rates as they exist in the community. Telephone services are provided at no cost to people in custody and to those that receive their calls. Following the new admission process, each individual in our care is assigned a tablet at no cost with telephone service capabilities, as well as a wide range of free informational, educational, and entertainment media, including ebooks, religious and law library services, and a commissary ordering application. Individuals can order items through commissary, such as food, makeup, and brand name hygiene items that are delivered directly to their assigned housing area. Items are priced at fair market rates based on comparisons with prices found in the community and with no associated fees. Items that are not within market rates are not permitted on their menu. Item prices are set for the duration of the contract and can only be raised with the express consent of the department. The department's goal is to make sure that our contracting process is thorough, fair, and consistent with citywide policies, while at the same time ensuring that the needs of the agency and the people in our care are met. The department has enhanced its contract review process to include a second-level review of all contract submissions, which is conducted by the agency chief contracting officer and the senior deputy agency chief contracting officer. Additionally, the Department of Correction is exploring establishing a contract compliance auditing process to reinforce our existing practices to ensure compliance. The department's procurement unit participates in training sessions and refresher courses on citywide procurement policies and procedures to ensure compliance with established citywide policies. Of course, the department is aware that a limited number of vendors that operate in the jails have engaged in problematic practices in the past, and has taken these concerns into account when drafting contracts with those vendors and designing policies related to their services. In 2023, the Department of Investigation released a report related to the telephone services providers' unintentional recording of privileged phone calls, causing breaches of attorney-client privilege for some persons in custody. Well before the report was released, the Department of Correction had placed the provider on a closely monitored corrective action plan to address the unique issues that arose in this incident. As noted in the report, the vendor worked quickly and transparently with the department to correct the issue and implemented safeguards to prevent future problems. Since the remedial measures were put into place, all privileged telephone communications have been handled legally and appropriately. Additionally, we are aware of criticisms relating to the vendor providing commissary services in our facilities. However, the department receives very few complaints related to commissary services. Less than 1% of orders are associated with a grievance, and works with people in custody to quickly resolve any issues that may arise. The vast majority of these complaints are related to delivery status or about accessing accounts to place an order. Very few, if any, grievances are related to product prices or quality. Similarly, we have found that we receive very few complaints regarding tablet services relative to the scale of the operation. Complaints that are received are addressed quickly by dedicated members of our staff. Contracting with a vendor to provide commissary services allows for the department to leverage the vendor's resources to minimize department staff directly involved in providing commissary to the population, allowing the Department of Correction personnel to remain dedicated to ensuring safety in the facilities. The individuals look forward to these orders each week, and any disruption or stop in service would have adverse effects on those in our care as well as the staff who work in the jails. The vendor is able to provide a broader range of stock products than the department was able to offer when self-servicing the commissary orders. Consequently, people in our care consistently receive the items that they want and order. Turning to the legislation being heard today, Introduction 825 would require the department to return all unused commissary funds to individuals prior to them leaving custody. We share the council's goal of ensuring that individuals can access and claim their funds when leaving custody so that those funds are not abandoned. However, the policies proposed through this legislation would not achieve that goal, and further would put people being discharged from custody as well as city employees at significant risk of harm. The department provides several avenues for individuals to collect their institutional funds prior to or during discharge. Individuals can collect up to $200 in cash immediately upon discharge and can request a check for any remaining funds. Individuals can also collect their funds in the same manner for up to 120 days following discharge at any of the department's cashier windows. Additionally, individuals can arrange to have their institutional funds transferred to a loved one in the community at any point prior to discharge. This bill proposes that individuals leaving custody, some of whom have several hundred or even thousands of dollars in their institutional account, be provided with those funds in full in cash. The resources needed to ensure that this amount of cash could be kept on site at each DOC cashier window 24 hours a day, 7 days a week would be insurmountable from an operational, infrastructure, and security perspective. The cashier windows may become targets for criminal acts, as would every individual being handed large sums of money in cash at these sites. Even if the department could reasonably and safely operationalize the bill as written, our data shows that the $200 cash cap does not appear to be the barrier for the vast majority of individuals collecting their funds at discharge. Nearly 70% of individuals who do not claim their funds when leaving custody have $100 or less remaining in their accounts. We would like to work with the council on an alternate plan to resolve the longstanding issue of unclaimed commissary funds that addresses the root cause of the issue and does not present any of the safety concerns noted. Overall, we believe that the telephone, tablet, and commissary services offered by these vendors are of immense value to the people in our care and to their loved ones in the community. Free and accessible phone calls mean that people can stay connected with their families and maintain the critical social networks that will support them in successfully reintegrating into their communities. Since 2022, people in custody have had the ability to make free phone calls using their tablets, providing greater access to phone services and, in turn, more opportunities to stay connected. Tablets offer not only entertainment and reduce idleness, but also connect individuals to important services and educational resources without having to leave their housing areas or wait for a scheduled program. These serve as critical tools to a holistic approach to violence reduction and behavior management, which supports safer, more humane jails. We share the Council's goal of ensuring that those in the Department's care have access to high-quality services that are delivered ethically and transparently, and that comply with all contractual, legal, and regulatory obligations. We believe our vendors have been critical in supporting the Department in moving towards a more modern and efficient operation, which not only benefits the people in custody and DOC staff, but the city as a whole. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and we're happy to take your questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We're going to start our questions regarding the Keefe Group commissary contracts. How was the Keefe Group selected for the emergency commissary contract in 2022, and why wasn't that selection through an ordinary process?
In 2022, we were coming out of the effects of the COVID pandemic, and as in 2021, a state of emergency was declared by Mayor de Blasio because of severe staffing crises. In response to that, we had less people on site to supply commissary services, and we recognized the need to do that quickly. And Keefe was an organization that was obviously throughout the country established in this area regarding commissary production. What the Keefe contract was able to give us was the ability to have a vendor that not only did not have the supply chain issues that we were seeing at the time through our commissary ability to procure, but they also had the staffing needed to provide these services, package up the items appropriately, and bring them to the housing areas, rather than have DOC staff have to not only staff the inventory and compile all the commissary items together, but then also to bring the persons in custody to the areas where they have to pick up the purchases. And there's additional issues related to ordering and otherwise. So the department at the time recognized that an emergency contract would be appropriate to give these important commissary services without also having to move, move persons in custody around to also limit the spread of the virus at the time.
What was the basis for determining Keefe's 2020 contract should be extended when it expired? And was there any RFP or other outreach done during the initial contract term or extension to determine additional providers who could do the same work?
At the time, when we entered into the emergency contract with Keefe, and quite candidly, the department was very pleased with the service they were getting. We recognized the importance of that. The extension was negotiated with Keefe because, again, to continue those services. At the time, Keefe was actually working at risk for the period from when the first initial emergency contract ended to the time that the extension was granted. And we had to, that's the issue where we deemed the contract appropriate at the time. But where we had done a holistic review of all the pricing at the time we did the initial emergency contract, that there were price comparisons per ounce made with local community pricing. And based on that and the services that were provided and the continuing staffing crisis, a need was identified to extend the contract.
So is your answer no, you did not do any outreach for the renewal of the contract term to additional providers to make sure that you're comparing services and pricing?
I'm not aware of outreach at the time. I could circle back with you on that to see if it was done, but it was extended based on the terms of the original contract.
There have been reports that Keefe was charging people in custody for more for items than specified in their contract, and for some nearly 100% higher than what is charged in local stores, the benchmark established in your contract. Did you investigate these assertions? Were they substantiated? And how did DOC's contracting officers demonstrate the need for a negotiated acquisition in this case as opposed to a competitive bidding process, particularly if the provider was overcharging?
We had done and had continued to do pricing comparisons. There were members of the staff who were dedicated to this task. We did not see those levels of price discrepancies, what you're describing, 100% more. The comparisons were done in comparison to local competitive pricing based on a per ounce comparison. In some circumstances, we could not do a direct apples to apples comparison because of the need for some of the items to be packaged in a secure manner for a jail system. That's an element that's not accounted for in some of the conversations that we've had and have seen, is that there's a need for clear packaging or other types of things. For instance, we can't have cans of tuna because of the metal and the security risk that presents. So some of that is accounted for in the pricing, but nonetheless, we did not see the discrepancies that have been articulated.
Have you seen the articles where they do side-by-side comparisons by the city?
We have seen those articles, and again, while I can't speak as to the processes of the reporter, we do know that, again, we have a holistic and robust mechanism for people to check the prices, and in many circumstances, the prices are lower than what we see in the community, and then in some circumstances, they can be. The problem with what we see is it's not as convenient to, like, what you could do now is just go online and look at price comparisons of what's on sale or otherwise. This is something where the vendor has to maintain things in stock consistently. You have these security mechanisms regarding the packaging and otherwise. So where we can, we did these robust ounce comparisons per price, and they were generally consistent with the prices that we see in the community. Again, some being slightly higher, some being slightly lower, but the prices that are in the contract are consistent and stable and are not subject to increase except by approval through the Department of Corrections.
Can you tell us about your process itself of how you're doing price comparisons? Are you using a software tool? Are you manually collecting pricing before you sign the contract? Can you tell us more about how you're doing that?
I don't engage in this myself, but the people that do, what I understand is they actually go to the stores and look at the areas. There's not a software that I'm familiar with, but I can follow back with you to see if we do have that. But I understand it's actually a physical comparison to local stores and prices, some of which can be found online, but they do utilize, again, local pricing.
Okay, so you're manually going to a store and checking? Because
I
that
think
isn't a fair market comparison, because, for example, at the time that the article was written, and the pricing that you have on your contract itself for female menstrual pads are double the price of what it is at CVS. So how would that work? Because each store may have a markdown at the week of that you're doing physical price checks.
Well, it's not a one-time look-in, right? This is an ongoing process, and we look at them on a rolling basis. The contract is for a several-year period. And again,
But you had testified that item prices are set for the duration of the contract. So if the contract is set for more than a year, how are you doing that on a rolling basis?
They're set at the initiation of the contract, and they could only be increased. However, we have seen items that are decreased based on the consumer price index. Mm-hmm. So we notice now what's on our menu is lower than some of the pricing obligations, but the increase in prices from the initial contract implementation, I think there have only been 3 increases excluding stamps, which the stamps only cost what they cost at the post office. But excluding that, I think there's only been 3 price increases, and one of them was actually due to an error in the typing where it was for sugar packets, which went from 11 cents to 30 cents, but that was an error in the initial contract price.
Okay, so you're saying that the pricing for the items set in the contract can be changed to decrease or increase with your approval throughout the contract?
They are allowed, pursuant to the contract, only 20% of the items can be changed in a year, if at all, and they could only be raised by 5% of the contract price. And again, that's with the approval of the Department of Corrections. So actually, we had a request for an increase in price, I think in July of 2024. We actually declined one of the requests to increase the price and took the item off of our menu.
And what item was that?
I think it was pork jerky.
Okay. And I want to recognize Councilmember Hanif, who has joined us on Zoom, as well as Councilmember Ina Vernikov, who has just joined us. In relation to the contract for Keefe, we saw that we had passed legislation requiring that women's hygiene products are available to inmates, but we saw that on your Keefe contract that there is a commissary charge for the menstrual products, almost double what it is in CVS. Can you tell us more about what's happening with menstrual products for women inmates?
Yes, my name is Nell McCarty. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the Division of Programs and Community Partnerships. I do just want to highlight that menstrual products are free of charge for women who are in need of the menstrual products. And so any item, and actually, generally, the necessities that people need who are in our care are provided for free. So a woman does not need to purchase menstrual pads or any menstrual products through commissary. There are different brands, and so the brand that may be available on commissary may be different from what the brand is within the facility, and I cannot speak to that for certain at this exact moment, but I am aware that all menstrual products are free for women.
Okay, so the pricing that is listed on the commissary contract for female menstrual products, are there for sample, or are they still being sold?
They're available for purchase. Someone can purchase them, but as mentioned, it may be a different brand or a brand name that someone prefers, but there are free and available menstrual products for women within the facilities.
Okay, thank you for that. How much did
Because this was a conversation we had earlier, just to have on the public record, what are the types of menstrual products that you're offering for free? Because there's a variety.
I do not have a list of that with me right now, and I'm just hesitant to give you like the exact breakdown of every single product.
Doesn't need to
I
be
do
the
know that-
brand, but if it's
Yeah, if you can let us
tampons,
know.
pads, cups, like just to make sure we have for the public record exactly what items. Like
Yes,
if
at
it's
least,
only one type, that might be why people are purchasing.
there are tampons and pads available. Beyond that, we could certainly follow up, but definitely various types.
Okay.
That would be great, because when my team had checked into the law, it said that we saw that for DOC, only menstrual cups were available, and we thought maybe that is why they're purchasing, but if that is not true, that's great to hear.
It's definitely, yes, we definitely have those other products that are provided free
For
of
free.
charge.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And how much did commissary services cost the Department of Corrections before the 2022 emergency Keefe contract that outsourced the fulfillment of commissary orders? And what is the current annual cost of commissary services to the department now? We would like to see a comparison of internal in-house as well as external with a contractor.
I'm not sure that the actual, we're ability to make a comparison, right? Because what we did with the previous commissary system was that we purchased items, right? We purchased products, and then we had our own staff do the services. What is now provided within the commissary contract is actually the services and the products. So Keefe does send commissary staff to the facilities, and they package the items, they sort the items, they process the orders, they bring them to the housing areas, and then they also check. We have a system where the persons in custody could check their items in a clear bag, check off a receipt. So I'm not really able to do a cost comparison before the previous processes and what we've done under Keefe, because it's a complete modernization and revamp. For instance, even now, they could order through the tablets, which we'll talk about, but we didn't have that before.
Externally.
Before, it was a whole different system that required transport of the persons in custody to a commissary area. It's really not a comparison that we're able to do.
Got it. How, for DOC Commissioner Magnelli Liddy testified before the council in 2024 that DOC did an analysis of other jail service providers. What did that process entail? What other vendors did you examine? What documents were produced for this analysis? And on what grounds did you conclude the existing contract with Keefe provided better and more cost-effective services than other vendors?
Well, we regularly communicate with other jurisdictions. I think particularly in this case, one of them was Cook County. Cook County, which we've communicated with because they've been under a monitorship and receivership as well, and they've used a different vendor. The price comparison that we did at the time was substantially higher. One of the important elements that I think should be pointed out, other jurisdictions have a revenue sharing program wherein the jurisdiction or the correctional facility itself gets a portion of the revenue from the sales. We don't do that here for any of our commissary sales whatsoever. We do not revenue share, so that is designed purposefully to maintain the costs and keep them down, and also to not profiteer off the persons in custody. But Keefe does engage in those types of contract arrangements with our other jurisdictions. So we looked at that. Also, some of these are available online. That's another price comparison you could do, even through some of the online reporting. But specifically, we did a price-by-price comparison with Cook County. And actually, Cook County sought out a separate vendor from what they were using based on our comparison because they recognized how much lower our prices were.
And who are the other vendors that you checked?
I don't know which one Cook County was using. So
No, for our own comparisons. So for our vendors that you were checking against Keefe to see if they're competitive, who were they?
I don't know that information. And we could talk. I could get that for you though.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Councilmember Chair Nurse, and then we'll come back to more Keefe questions
Okay.
later.
Would you be able to get that information while we're in this hearing, or see if we can text around?
Yeah, I think we have to follow up. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Okay,
Because I really don't, I'm sorry, Chair, I don't know it, so I have to find out where we could get
okay.
that.
I just wanted to follow back up. I know that the tampons and pads are free. I think there was a period where that you weren't providing tampons because of security concern. So it's good to know that they're back. I think, the price gouging issue is important because it's my understanding that in order to get those menstrual products, you have to ask from a CO, right? Or are they just, tell me on the record how somebody would ask for or get those products?
We can find out, but they are regularly provided. It's not
How are they
a
provided?
process. It's provided in a manner similar to our other, items like clothing and any hygiene products. We have to give soap. We have to give
Right.
all those types of things. So anyone, I think, at the intake process that would request or express a need for that, it's part of the regular production. But again, we'll confirm the exact process. I don't think it's anything that's outside the ordinary provision of these types of items.
Okay, yeah, my understanding is you have, or it's been told to us that you have to ask for these things. And so sometimes people, depending on the relationship with the CO on the floor or what's going on in the housing unit, might want to purchase instead of having to deal with that. And so that's why we want to make sure that those prices are what is comparable to the outside for the loved ones.
We
to
understand that.
provide that.
I've not become familiar with any complaints of that nature, but certainly we'll find that out.
Okay.
And if you're aware of any situation where that's happening specifically, please let us know, and we'll certainly address that.
Okay, I have questions regarding Securus.
Sure.
I think the council's been quite concerned about Securus's recording and retention of privileged attorney-client communications for some time. I think there's been back and forth about this, and there was reporting in 2020 and 2021. I think you were alluding to it in your testimony. We understand that some steps were taken to prevent further occurrences. DOI also issued 4 recommendations to limit the risk that privileged communications will be recorded in the future. And I'd love to know the status of those. Have these been implemented?
I think with the exception of the actual policy changes, we have implemented steps that, to ensure that this problem does not happen again. And as a matter of fact, we had a quality assurance program in place, which Securus still does, and we have not been apprised of a situation like this since the initial complaints.
Okay, so the recommendations were annual training for Securus users on identifying potentially privileged calls. Is there annual training being conducted?
There's not annual training, but when we considered this, at least when we talked about it, I'm not really 100% what they mean by Securus users. In terms of department users, it's a very extremely limited universe of staff that have access to these calls. It has to be approved essentially by the commissioner or another high-ranking executive. Those are ordinarily people who are trained in this manner, so we don't have an ongoing training because of that, because it's not a broad universe. And I don't think the intention was to train the actual people who make phone calls, on this process. I understand what I think they're getting at, but it's not something that's...
So no. Memorializing protocols to prevent the monitoring and recording of privileged calls in written departmental directives was another recommendation. Do we have that written?
We had not changed our directives in response to this.
Okay. and immediately notifying DOI upon discovering that a privileged call has been improperly recorded. Is that a practice that's been put into place?
100% it is, yes. And we shared with them any of the auditing that was done prior to and post the DOI report and the discovery of the incidents.
Okay. So the first recommendation, it's unclear what the DOI recommend. You are unclear about what they are intended, but you've said you are, from my understanding, from what you just said, the department, people within the department who are utilizing Securus are doing an annual training?
I don't know about annual, but they certainly have been trained in investigative techniques, including the use of Securus and dissemination or identifying privileged calls.
Okay. Okay. Is there any intention to change departmental directives?
I don't know of any right now, but I could certainly find out. We could see. But again, the policies and procedures related to this, we have not seen problems of this nature again. So it's not something that we're opposed to. It's just whether or not the necessity exists for a specific directive related to this, but certainly something we could explore.
Okay. In an instance where people whose conversations were unlawfully recorded and retained, were any of these people notified?
Everyone was notified, I think. So it came, as you're aware, it came to us through what ultimately was a discovery production to a defense attorney. In response to that and through the auditing process that we did in conjunction with Securus, all of the defender agencies were notified. Not only Bronx and Brooklyn defenders, which were involved initially, but all of the other defenders. It was a limited universe, and it was just essentially human error that caused that has since been rectified. And we've, again, not seen it since, and it's not been brought to our attention that any of these types of phone calls have been part of criminal discovery or otherwise recorded when they were privileged.
Okay. Just a few more questions on the recording. What percentage of calls are automatically reviewed by a human?
There's not necessarily an automatic review. We do have, I don't want to get too deep into our intelligent investigative techniques, but based on certain things that happen, intelligence, confidential informants, something that happens, we have, our analysis shows that only 10 to 15% of all the calls are monitored at any time. And usually those are not randomized, they're targeted.
And they're monitored by human beings versus, for example, AI. Are you all using?
We don't use AI in that.
And what percentage of these recorded, reviewed calls are leading to the prevention of a security violation or a crime?
I don't have that breakdown. I'd have to speak to our intelligence. There's varying things, right? So sometimes we just discover that somebody could be planning an act of violence within the jails that then doesn't happen because we take measures to prevent it. Alternatively, it could be something criminal that we would share with the district attorney's offices. But again, I don't have a breakdown of what percentage result in some type of
In
act.
the follow-up, we could have the breakdown of, what percentage of these calls have led to a successful intervention, and what percentage of those have been turned over to the district attorney's office.
Well, the district attorney's office usually will, we turn calls over in response to a subpoena. So that's usually the sharing mechanism for that. Otherwise, it's not an ordinary, just automatic handing over unless there's specific criminal activity that's identified.
Okay. Can we talk about the procurement process that the department followed for contracting with Securus for tablets? Can you tell us a little about that? Were there multiple bids received? How much money is the tablet contract for, and what is the duration? To get that on
Sure.
record?
So the department we had done an open bid for Securus back in 2014 for the phone services. So we had Securus as a vendor at the time. We were using a different vendor for tablet services. And as it turns out, they really weren't up to our standards. It wasn't working. They were increasing the prices on us. So we recognized the need to go outside of that. We did some market research into other types of providers that had tablet services, what would be required, what would be the cost. And then Securus, who, when we initially procured the tablets, they had a tablet service, but it wasn't very good. we recognized that Securus was not up to, up to our standards as to what we were looking for. During the time that we had Securus as a provider for the phone services, and when we recognized that the tablet service vendor that we had was not working for us at all, we were able to look at Securus's tablet provider and add an amendment to the contract that provided them to give us the tablets and to give this multitude of services that is currently on the tablet. So it was ultimately an amendment to the contract.
Okay. And what's the value of that contract? And how long is it for?
Yeah, you can say.
Sorry. The value of the contract is $5,395,600.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. I think because the microphone was a little bit far
Oh,
away.
sorry
from me.
about
Yeah,
that.
no worries.
The contract value is $5,395,600.
Okay.
And that's for the year renewal.
Near renewal.
Right.
Okay. I have some more questions, but because we have a quorum, I want to offer, we don't have, okay, sorry, we don't have a quorum. I was going to try to offer one of our colleagues who's online to ask questions. I'm going to offer Councilmember Narcisse a question.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. One of the things that I'm always talking about is about the appointment. So with the tablet, can they make appointment for, let's say, if they're not feeling good, they're in the cell and they want to make an appointment, can they access the tablet to make an appointment, medical appointment?
At this time, there isn't like an application where they could just open up an application and use that to make a medical appointment, but I do want to highlight that Correctional Health Services does have a direct hotline, and so the fact that the tablet affords somebody the opportunity to make a phone call, if they are in their cell, they could make a phone call using that hotline to speak with Correctional Health Services.
Thank you. I think to make it easier, since we've been having a lot of missing appointments, I think that's one of the things that people can feel like I feel kind of I'm in charge of my health. And when they transition out, so I become part of their lives, knowing that I have to take responsibility to go to the doctor and make an appointment when I don't feel good. That's kind of preventive care from here. What is the current percentage of the people, I don't know if they have access to that one, the current percentage of the people in custody who has assigned a tablet?
Thank you for the question. So as of January 22nd, 2025, which is when I got this report, 84% of eligible people in custody were assigned a tablet. And when I say eligible people in custody, we do not provide tablets to people within the first 30 days of their incarceration while they're during the new admission process.
If a person is in custody, has an issue with their assigned tablet, how is that addressed?
Thank you. There's actually multiple ways. So there is a way for them to submit an inquiry through their tablet directly, but if the tablet issue that they're having is one that it's not operational, there are then again further options. There are hotlines that they can call for the Division of Programs. We also do have social service staff and program counselors who visit housing areas at varying cadences. Weekly for sure, sometimes in most cases daily. And so they would have an opportunity to speak to that staff personnel, provide their complaint, and then that complaint would be provided directly to the tablet staff. They can also submit a formal grievance through the department's grievance process or through calling 311. So that would be collected and gathered as well.
Mm-hmm. Are tablets taken away as a punishment, discipline? We have heard that tablets are taken as a punishment. If yes, are there rules and guidelines that you have in place, or when it's appropriate to take, like if it's appropriate to take it away and the tablet due to behavior or concerns? What are the guidelines on when it is returned?
Thank you. So tablets are not just removed to be removed from a person as a discipline practice at this time. But I do want to highlight that there are instances where a tablet is damaged or is destroyed, and then that tablet would ultimately be returned back to the Division of Programs staff and the tablet operations team, who would assess the situation on an individualized basis. And when I say assess the situation, there are obviously reports that come with a damaged and destroyed tablet. Not all may be done at the damage of the person in custody, and so we do review that, which would then result in them potentially being reissued an additional tablet. But as like a blanket disciplinary process, that is not the practice with the tablets at this time.
At this time. Since the change in presidential administration, multiple city agencies have issued memos advising staff how to respond if non-local law enforcement agents show up in your facility, in the city's facilities. You want me to repeat it for you?
I didn't hear a question.
Since the change in presidential administration, multiple city agencies have issued memos advising staff how to respond if a non-local enforcement agents show up at the city's facilities. Now, has DOC, yourself now, issued such a memo to staff? Have there been any communications with vendors and service providers regarding sharing identifying information of incarcerated individuals?
I'm not aware of a memo advising how to handle people coming to our facilities, though, again, Rikers is a unique place, right? You can't just drive up to the front door. There's multiple points of entry that you have to go through. So, we don't have that type of interaction on an ordinary basis. Nonetheless, to the second point, all of our contracts have provisions regarding privacy and the dissemination of information. None of our vendors, to our knowledge, and if it's doing so, it's without authorization or it'd be a breach of contract, are sharing any personal identifying information about anyone in our custody with anyone, never mind other federal agencies or otherwise.
And by any chance, if someone being discharged, would they, how far, like you put them, do you guide them, give them some information to how to navigate, what they should do? Because I think like if somebody's being discharged, not knowing all the in and out, what's going on here outside, I think it's our responsibility to give them some guidance.
Just as a highlight, I mean, for the City of New York, we obviously, our DOC staff are not communicating with entities like ICE. But further, the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, MOCJ, they do have the Community Reentry Network, which does afford many contracted providers that do help guide individuals post-release and upon their discharge from our custody. And those providers, I know, offer a wealth of services and availability to support somebody, even additional legal support as well, or guidance on how to get in touch with additional legal support. So I do just want to highlight that during the discharge process, the providers through the Community Reentry Network, through MOCJ, are really the primary resource that help people day of discharge and post-discharge as they navigate next steps.
Thank you, because there's a lot of anxiety outside right now for a lot of folks. So sometimes after discharge, people kind of lost. They don't know. I know some agency give some nice services, but I think it's somehow making sure that people are okay as they're being discharged, because we're in a challenging time. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Chair.
I just wanted to follow up. You said you aren't aware of any guidance or memo or anything that comes. When we were here a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I forgot, we had a hearing with Moya. They testified that they have sent guidance to all agencies and those heads of agencies, and they're expected to communicate down. So I just want to confirm if you have or have not, has DOC received any guidance? And if there's a reason why it wouldn't, could you put that on the record, please?
Yeah, no, there's no reason why we wouldn't. In our agency, any of these communications with Moya or otherwise, and anything related to immigration services, is vetted and works through the legal division, which I oversee. so that we have 2 attorneys dedicated to that, and then they communicate with our custody management and discharge unit. So there's very limited circumstances where there would even be the chance of that interaction, but again, we don't have opposition to it, and we could certainly explore that.
Sorry, it's not a question of if you'd have opposition to it, it's a question of can you confirm that you received any updated guidance or new guidance since directives have been coming down from the federal government?
Oh, yes. No, I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question.
No,
Yes,
I just, because you had said like you weren't aware of any memo that's come down, but they said they were sending memos, so I just wanted to confirm.
No, to clarify, Chair, I'm sorry. I was responding to the council member's question that I was not aware if we had sent out
Okay,
that
understood.
we had put out a memo internally. But yes, we have been in communication with Moya regarding all of these issues, and we've communicated within our division and in custody management. The question is, what I said I would not be opposed to is a department-wide memo.
Got it. No, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
Understood.
Councilmember Ayala had some questions? Sorry, Deputy Speaker, don't want to get in trouble.
It's okay. I have a lot of names. So I just have some basic questions about the commissary. Do you know what the number of inmates, I guess, you know, what does it average to that do not claim their commissary prior to being released?
We do report on the number of individuals who don't claim their commissary funds on an annual basis. So we do know that, and this is a stretch of time, that there are about 100,076 719. I hope I said that right. But this is from, like, I believe 2007 to present. Now, when we're talking...
Wait, $100,000 or 100,000
no,
people? People.
No, accounts.
Accounts. Wow.
Accounts.
From 2007.
From 2007 to present. But then, just to let me confirm that I'm giving you the accurate breakdown, which is not right there. But what I do know is that on an annual basis, it looks like about $200,000 that are unclaimed funds for the individuals that are that have not picked up their funds. But I'm sorry, give me 1 second to
Yes.
get to the exact number.
So we have, so with respect to the specific accounts on what is the unclaimed funds, this we have up until August of 2024. But there are 137, again, this goes back to, as DC McCarty mentioned, 2007, 137,598 total accounts that have unclaimed funds. A vast, vast majority of those are so $5 or less accounts for 30% of those. $10 to $30 accounts for 30%, and up to $100 is like 25. So the amounts that exceed $200 are very, very small. But that's the cumulative amount. And this is, you know, these funds are sitting there, right? We're not using them. We want to work with the council to find a way to get rid of them, but they go back pretty far into the past as far as what's abandoned.
After the 120 days window, what happens with the funds?
The funds stay in this account and they can't be touched by the Department of Correction or anyone. But somebody is able to still actually claim those funds. So let's say someone does have funds from beyond 120 days post-release. And we actually have this communication up on our website as well. So they can go through the website and submit a request for the funds. But the formal process post the 120 days is that they can be provided in a check format. So the notion that we provide $200 in cash, after 120 days, all funds would go into a check format for the person, and the department would need a notarized letter indicating the request for the unclaimed funds. And again, that's only after the 120 days. Prior to the 120 days, or during that initial post-release period for those 3 months or 120 days, they would be able to receive the $200 or less in cash, and then the remainder of the funds in check format.
And what prevents DOC from having those funds or that check or whatever, in whatever format you wish to pay it out, ready? We know when somebody's being discharged, right? We have a date. I'm assuming there's a process, right, for discharging why wouldn't that money be available at discharge? Why would I have to claim it?
So, when someone is discharged, first, their discharge date isn't always known, especially for people who are detainees, and some people do leave directly from court. But just to highlight, there are funds available. So again, the $200 in cash that someone can receive is available immediately upon release at the Rikers Island Central Cashier, which they walk through upon release. They can stop at the window, which is open 24/7. So it is a 24/7 operation that they could receive their funds from a cashier at that window. If they are released from the courts as well, there are bail windows available that they could pick up their unclaimed funds as well from their commissary.
And by the way, I'm sorry, just for clarity's sake, a person who's discharged can also, at the time of discharge, get a check for funds that exceed $200. So it's not like you're limited to 200, then you have to claim it after. You can get that at the time, but only the cash is up to $200.
Is there a reminder post-release, whenever possible, to encourage folks to get their money?
Well, I'll answer your question this way. There are flyers throughout all of the facilities that do identify that someone can receive up to $200 in cash up to 120 days post-release. And within those flyers, they also indicate that they can come and pick up a check for remaining funds that are above the $200. With that, we also put that flyer on the tablet. We do have staff available throughout the facilities. So we have, I had mentioned the counselors that go and visit these areas that can help people, one, release funds prior to discharge. So they can release funds to family and loved ones if that was an option throughout the entirety of their incarceration and prior to leading up to their discharge. But those counselors can also support them in identifying how much funds are actually in their commissary account. So to give them a printout so that they're aware that they have funds in their commissary account, and that it would also further tell them verbally about how they can go and receive their funds post-discharge. So those counselors can give them kind of that human interaction or that human support. But once somebody is post-release, so once somebody is discharged in the community, we have this information up on our website in detail. There's actually an entire page dedicated to in the person in custody services of how they can claim their unclaimed commissary funds.
And additionally, on that same website, people can go on and check to see if they have and how much unclaimed funds that are there.
Yeah, I mean, I just assume that if I have $5 and I'm, I've spent 8 months, 2 years, whatever it is at Rikers, that I'm gonna leave as fast as possible. I might not think that $5 is enough to stop by the commissary, window. But it also doesn't benefit you to continue to accumulate, funds that are being held in perpetuity. So what is, I'm trying to figure out what measures you've taken to try to remediate this, right? Maybe having that money available so that when we're giving, I'm assuming if I'm an inmate, and I've never been in Rikers, but so I'm gonna play a little bit here, but and imagine what it would look like. Now I'm leaving and I have to get my clothes that I came in with or whatever I'm gonna wear. I'm gonna grab my documents and the things that my belongings that I wish to take with me, and then I have to pass a certain area. So why wouldn't, I think it would make sense to have those funds readily available. Here's your stuff, have a good day. I wouldn't stop for $5, but again, it might not mean, this is not life-changing money, but the problem is that it continues to add up. And we have no way of communicating with folks. And I don't see anybody going on the website, quite frankly. Unless I left a lot of money there, there's no reason why I'm gonna go in there.
I mean, a couple of things to that. One, we share the concern. I mean, we really do. We don't use this money. We don't want this money. We're just concerned about, the bill and the issues of having this cash on site, but that doesn't solve the issue you just raised, right? So even if we have all this money, which presents a danger to anyone, again, if they do stop and you hand them $50,000, they have to have that in the account. That's a dangerous situation.
Is there a limit on how much you can have in commissary?
No.
No, there are individuals who do have thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in their account.
It's not a huge
limited.
percentage.
I'm assuming that's a very small percentage of folks.
It's a small percentage.
Yes.
Okay.
But also, I mean, we hope this doesn't happen, but it's also notable that if somebody does come back into our custody for any reason, that money automatically goes back into the commissary account that they had before. You know, obviously, we don't want that to happen. We'd much prefer people don't come into our custody and come, you know, and take their funds, but that is another, you know, avenue, so it's not exhausted necessarily. It can be exhausted later on. But we do share those concerns. You know, the problem with some of the aspects of the bill, I think, and one of the things you mentioned is giving the money to them kind of during this process. The problem is that cash is actually a contraband in our prison, so we can't give it to them until in our jails until we, you know, have them discharged. So that's just one of the processes elements that we have to wait until they're out.
I mean, but there are many means of, there are many ways to pay out, right? Electronically, via cards, you know, via check. Have any of those options been exhausted?
But I'm sorry, we do these things. You know, we do have this availability to do it.
Upon request, though.
But but that's at this discharge time.
And I mean, I do want to highlight again that when someone is a detainee being discharged and they're literally exiting Rikers to go to the bus that takes them off of Rikers Island, they pass the cashier window. So it is available, and at that passing of the cashier's window, and I understand the point that like you just may not stop, but it is in the concept of like it's being handed or available, it is right there and accessible. But I do agree that, you know, we equally want to see people receive their funds, and I do think that this is for all of us to really think
I
collectively.
just think that
how we
if
get
the $5 that I could care less about are becoming an inconvenience for you, that it will behoove you to figure out how to get me to claim those $5.
Honestly, I think this is a great conversation to have. We could share this offline and work out something that we think is fruitful and would solve that problem. Again, this is not an issue for us. You know, we can't force someone to do it, but certainly we could explore every measure to try to get it so that we don't have these. Because again, they're not being used; they're just there.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to add to that conversation is just, can you actually simplify the process? Because you don't want to hold the fund. Can you put a paper on top of it and then kind of like, this is the fund and this is the window, like direct the person? Because everybody, just like, even $1 you find on the floor, people will pick it up. So if you have $5, you have $200, whatever it may be. So I think it should be, for me, from listening, I don't think that engagement is kind of fluid, like for the person to be like saying, okay, this is the money that I have, and said, okay, on your way out, this is a $5, and circle the amount, and you can stop at the cashier and pick up your money. So because you're anxious, you just don't want to go, like my colleague just said. Do you think that is something that you can do to simplify it, to make it a little more encouraging? Like you have that kind of money, you stop at the cashier? Can you do that?
I definitely think that we can explore how we message to people what their remaining funds are leading up to their discharge. I think the challenge that I mentioned is that for, let's say, somebody who's city sentenced where we know their discharge date, or if somebody has a great sense of where their discharge may land in their process with the courts, in that scenario it may be easier. There are some scenarios though where people do post bail and they're very quickly removed from custody, and that we may not be able to always instantly print it out. But again, I agree that there are definitely avenues that we could be communicating. So we'll look into any suggestion.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And it's good to know that you're open to the conversation and trying to, with Councilmember Hudson, who couldn't be here to speak on her bill, and actually like solve the root cause of the problem, as you say, which is, you know, I think a big issue. Okay, Councilmember Juan.
Thank you so much, Chair Nurse. On February 29, 2024, the Comptroller of the City of New York denied the registration for the Keefe contract, and I wanted to understand, because it was denied on lack of compliance to multiple procedural rules. The first one was the subject contract action, which was submitted months after its contract start date, and it lacked appropriation of sufficient funds to support the entire year of the contract. Second was inconsistencies concerning the contract's potential displacement of city employees. Third was failure to comply with requirements concerning MWBE. Fourth was failure to resolve all adverse and negative vendor issues as required prior by the PBB rules prior to the vendor commencing work on July 1st. And lastly, failure to provide a timely, completed doing business accountability form. What I'm most interested in, because we heard you testify especially about how there are no real negative vendor issues, but clearly the comptroller had evidence that there are adverse and negative vendor issues that are required to be resolved prior to commencing work. Can you expand on, pursuant to the PBB rules, agencies shall monitor a vendor performance no less than once annually. The comptroller has noted that DOC is behind on required vendor performance evaluations dating to 2021, and there are just one vendor performance evaluations for the Keefe Group since 2022. Can you refute the comptroller's assertion or explain why the agency is failing to meet its performance evaluation requirements and what has been done to remedy those issues that he has outlined?
So I think there's a bifurcated thing here, right? So we had the Keefe contract initially and what was done with that. I mean, obviously at the time, the Keefe was in place and operating in the system and operating at what we consider to be in a very effective and efficient level for us. That, again, alleviated a lot of the concerns. So when that processes was in place and how it was, I wasn't here at the time, but when we responded to the comptroller's office was that even above and beyond the performance evaluation, that, you know, the relationship and the look into and the awareness of other concerns that have been raised through news articles regarding Keefe were considered, and that even in the face of those, because of the services that they provided, they were still an adequate vendor for us. Separate from that, the second part essentially of the question is that I'm into the agency about 7 months, and in the time since I got there, the commissioner we have moved procurements from under our Deputy Commissioner of Management and Budget to the legal division, which is the structure of many of the agencies. So now the procurements division falls under ourselves. Our agency chief contracting officer came from another city agency. Assistant Commissioner Samuels is here for 2 months. We've both now sat down and looked at our processes and are shoring up everything regarding the evaluation process to ensure that Passport is utilized. We also had the fortunate circumstance of having someone from the Mayor's Office of Contracting Services work with us, kind of in bed with us on a part-time basis, to give an assessment of our practices and procedures relating to that. So in all of those measures that we've taken in the months that I've been here, we intend and will continue to do this evaluation process. As I mentioned in the testimony, we're also looking into getting an auditing compliance either team or person in to look holistically and work with our contract managers in each of the divisions to ensure all the vendor performance and the good work that they're doing in order to make an even more informed assessment as to continuing contract services with any vendor.
Okay, do you have an estimate time of when that will be? Since the last time was 2022 and it's 2025?
When what will be, I'm sorry?
For the evaluation and performance and the audits that you're looking to do?
Assistant Commissioner Samuels is looking at all of our contracts currently, and we're going to be implementing immediately the annual evaluations as required. It's something that's unequivocally necessary, and we're going to be doing that.
Okay, so we can expect it this year?
Yes, we intend on doing. I can't guarantee every single one of them because, again, the contracts are a rolling basis on some, but yes, we will not be in arrears nearly as much as current.
But could you make sure that the Keefe contract is done this year?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to do that. And I would also note, by the way, that we are currently processing a request for proposal, an RFP for commissary services.
Okay.
So, we have an extension pending for this current calendar year. Keefe is expired at the end of 2025? No, 2026? At the end of 2020, or June of 2026. And this RFP will be out, at some point during this year for commissary services.
Okay, great. Good to know that you're returning to competitive bidding. And for The outlined adverse and negative vendor issues for Keefe that the comptroller was focused on, have those been remedied or resolved?
I think the answer is the same. Again, talking about the performance that they were doing at the time and our look into what was happening, that it was determined that this was in fact a vendor that we would be pleased to continue working with for, the extension. But we are looking for an RFP. And I would just like to point out also, talking about the competitive bidding process, we have 104 active contracts right now. We have no emergency contracts in place, and only 3 of those are actually no bid. So I don't want to leave here with the perception that this is, a broad issue within the department. 3 of all of our registered contracts, which is, again, 104 active right now, I believe, are no bid.
Okay. It is our understanding that the initial emergency contract with Keefe had an annualized monthly cost of $583,000. When Keefe was granted a negotiated acquisition contract, the annualized monthly cost rose to $2.25 million, and with renewal, it has now risen to $2.75 million. Can you help us account for the rising monthly costs?
I think, a couple of things, obviously, coming out of the COVID pandemic, different costs and issues rose, but also I think our initial look into this was when we entered into the emergency contract, there were projections that our population would decline, and that has not been the case. And in fact, we're higher now, our census, than we were pre-2020, pre-pandemic. So I can't, again, I'll be more detailed. I'll look into that and get back to you on specifically what you're talking about. I know some of the associated costs were exactly that reason, because the staffing that they were required to provide the services had to increase because our population and the housing areas that were actually being utilized increased, contrary to initial projections of a decrease in population.
So you believe that your population is increased by 4-fold because it went from 583,000 to 2.75 million?
I don't know that those are necessarily commensurate. Like, it's not dollar for dollar. There's other things associated with it, and
Okay, please make sure you give us the breakdown because
Yeah.
it's a significant increase in costs. The initial 3-month emergency contract with Keefe Group provided itemized budget lines for staffing both on site and at warehouses, commissary products, IT warehouses, build-out, and freight. The contract's subsequent renewals have not included itemized budget lines. Can you provide us with updated budget lines for the current contract?
Yeah, we'll follow up with that. I don't have the budget lines with us, but that's certainly documentation we can provide to you.
Okay. In April 2024, DOC indicated there had been a trend in expired items or just not having packages delivered. The department also reported that in spring 2024, leadership met with individuals who managed the day-to-day commissary commissary operations to address the issues. What was causing the issues of expired and non-delivered items, and how did you resolve them?
I was not here at the time, so again, I will have to follow up. But what I've been informed is that it was just very simply supplier issues that they had gotten.
From Keefe.
From Keefe. And then we've taken those items off the menu. We found comparable items to put on at, again, the same price comparisons, so as not to, which was really our main concern, to disrupt the customary commissary for the persons in custody, because it is something that they requested and appreciate.
It's extremely concerning that we went from a monthly cost of $583,000 to now $2.75 million, and even this past year in 2024, you chose to continue to do business with them even though they were selling expired items or just not delivering at all. So what was the consequences of them giving us expired items or not having packages delivered at all?
People receive refunds, and just to highlight, of all of the commissary that was provided throughout, an example, in 2024, 56 items were refunded because they were expired. There are refunds that are provided to people when commissary items are out of stock. If something comes and it appears damaged, like the packaging, they also receive refunds. If somebody indicates that they feel like, for example, the ounce or the amount that's in there, it's not what was requested, that could also be refunded as well. Or if the order was wrong, that can be refunded.
How does the refund process work? Does the individual have to request a refund, or are you auto-refunding, noticing that the item was never delivered?
There are a few ways. So first, when a product is actually, when they receive their commissary, so when it actually is brought to them, they get a receipt of all the items, and they go through all of the items within, in the presence of the KEEF personnel, but also in the presence of DOC personnel, where they can indicate if the item that they requested that's on a receipt is actually within the packaging that they received. So in order for them to accept the packaging, they actually need to sign the receipt. And during that process, if there is an indication that, let's say, something was supposed to be there and it's not, or if there was an indication that something was out of stock, it would be automatically pulled out of the receipt. So it shouldn't even be indicated on the receipt, or it should be indicated that it was refunded automatically. But again, if somebody notices that, you know, they requested something and it doesn't look right, or that it was the wrong item, that then they can reference that when they sign the receipt to get a refund through that practice. Now, let's say somebody says, okay, this looks like all of my items are present and available. I sign the receipt, I take my items, and then I look, and so in the cases of the 56 expired from calendar year 2024, that this item is expired. That is when we would go through the grievance process of them actually being able to grieve to receive the refund for
What
the
is
product.
this grievance process?
That would be, they could do it multiple ways. They can submit a grievance within the facility, but they can also call 311. So they would
now
be able
they
to.
have to do the work to get the money back that they were wrong because they were sent an expired item.
It should be automatic that those expired items are not provided to them, but in the case that it is found there is an expired item, they do have an avenue to get a refund.
But now the onus is on them to go through a grievance process, to call 311, or what is the other process?
We have grievance within the facility where they can
So they have
submit
to fill out a
report.
form. So again, my question is, what are the consequences for KEEF for selling expired items, especially perishable food, where people can get very sick when consuming their expired products?
I just point out, this is an extraordinarily low situation we have. You know, as DC McCarty just mentioned, you know, we had the refunds that were processed, and what we see were, of the hundreds of thousands of orders and items that are provided, we've had 56 for total for in 2024 for expired. So I mean, in a comparison, we're not talking about widespread issues related to expired items.
Do you think in the outside world, if I went to a supermarket and out of the things I purchased, even if I had 2 things that were expired, do you think the consumers of the world would be upset?
Yeah, and we'd have to go back to the store to get a refund, which I've done in my life. So I mean, we're not saying the same thing here. We're talking about a very
If you
minor.
have consumer protections in New York City, you should have consumer protections as an inmate, and it shouldn't be on them to go through an onerous process to get the money back, and there should be consequences to KEEF for their 56 expired items. What were they?
I understand. That's not, I'm sorry. I don't think that it needs to be any consequences for a vendor that provides an immense service to the people on Rikers Island for what is really an extraordinarily small potential. I'm not mitigating it. We should not, you know, that should not happen in any, supermarket or anywhere in the world, but it does. And in these circumstances, again, evidenced by the very low, it's not, first of all, it's also not an onerous process. I mean, to make a grievance. I mean, it's literally a phone call or raising it up to someone in the facility, and then that gets transferred to KEEF, and then these refunds are made. So I challenge the notion that the grievance process is onerous, but secondary to that, it's also a very small percentage of items that we're talking about in the hundreds of thousands when we have complaints of anything related to commissary in less than 1% of all the delivered items.
Okay, I just want to know for the record, we've had multiple conversations here publicly about how the grievance process is actually onerous on individuals, and most people don't even bother with it because they know how ineffective it has been. I think you've been here at some of those conversations, if I recall correctly. You know, I think the fact that a contract jumps so high, I mean, there should be a standard of excellence. There's just a question here of like, there's no consequence. Your testimony is that there shouldn't be a consequence, I think is a pretty poor statement to make. But to say that the grievance process is functional when we've still been waiting to hear the updates of how it has been improved, if at all, is, I think, a poor statement about the situation.
It's also very concerning to me that there seems to be contradictory thoughts or opinions from DOC versus what the controller has seen and what inmates are seeing. Can you help me understand, what do you attribute to the consistently high number or share of grievances related to commissary since Keefe Group took over the operations, and why there seems to be a different understanding of what you see as a very minute amount of grievances and what the controller sees as a very significant amount of grievances that it even warrants him not allowing the contract to be registered in the first place?
I don't know what data the controller is using regarding grievances or complaints regarding Keefe. I just know what our specific data shows, and that I think it's 0.06% of all orders result in some type of grievance or complaint. Just above a 0.5%. So I can't comment on what the controller has seen, but this is what our on-site specific data that we look at shows.
Okay. I think even 56 expired items being sold is not okay, because now you have lost the trust of your consumers, where they will now have to check every single item that they purchase to make sure it's not expired.
Okay. I'm going to go back to Securus. I just had one question I wanted to ask, and then I have some questions from Councilmember Caban, who we weren't able to make quorum to get on. We had a question about the phone calls being used by the Securus tablets, the phone calls that go through those tablets. There was a question if there is a do not record option to ensure attorney-client communications are retained, or is it just every single call is recorded?
There's multiple ways to get on the do not record list. Request directly through the legal division or the department. There's a website where you could go on and see whether or not your number is registered. There is, when that is not the case, when there is a line that is going to be recorded, there's a dual level, what we call an admonishment, essentially informing the caller and the recipient that this call is being recorded. If you believe that it should be privileged, then you should hang up and not utilize this line. And then there's actually information on our website as how to go on there and register that number. We do get these numbers in bulk, especially from defender agencies, to input them. But there is both the ability to do it, and then when it's not, especially now since 2021, when it is not on a privileged line, that you get this second two-tier admonishment to make sure that people are aware that otherwise the phones are being recorded. I'm sorry, I don't know if that answered your question, Chair.
I think that does.
Okay.
And it's just more for getting it on the record.
Understood.
And then for the same thing with text, they are able to send text out of the tablets? No. Okay.
No.
Okay, I have some other questions. So this, I don't know if you'll specifically be able to answer this, but maybe others here. In FY24, there was $17 million worth of contracts that were canceled. Mm-hmm. Then there were 4 RFPs that were reissued after there was recognition that actually they needed outside help to carry out these services for $14 million. And there was a question of why not the full $17 million to be reissued, and what is that $3 million going towards?
So I can say we submitted multiple proposals for different types of programs, and 14 million of those proposals were picked up for us to be able to move forward with contracts. Now, the 4 that were selected are in areas that weren't necessarily through that $17 million contract. So I do want to indicate that they're 2 the $17 million that were lost. These are different scope and different areas that these new contracts are going through. So although maybe similar providers might be eligible to be submitting through this contracting process, they are covering different topic areas such as substance misuse programming, trauma-informed care, supplemental educational services, and then we have the reentry planning and transportation.
And are the same number of people being served? I think it was, I have here 1,700 people were served per day under the former contracts. Are the same number of people being served under the current contracts?
Do you mean like the upcoming contracts?
Well, the ones that will be accounted for in the 14 million. Will the 14 million in contracts serve 1,700 people?
I can't say for certain like the person-to-person comparison because the contract hasn't been implemented yet. So we're going to see the findings of how many people these contracts service, but the goal is intended that these contracts cover every single facility and that there is support provided to a large network of individuals in custody, but it's challenging for us to, I think, give like, will they meet this 1,700? It's intended absolutely that they would and actually beyond that scope. But it's, I can't say that for certain right now because we don't have the data because the contracts just were released on January 6th.
Sorry, the contracts were just released or the RFP?
The RFP, I'm
Okay.
sorry, yes.
Right, got it. Okay, I have a question here about drug use. And how drugs are getting into Rikers. The recently issued RFP for substance misuse treatment describes rampant substance misuse and the pervasive presence of drugs in the jails, which clearly makes everyone there less safe. The previous commissioner claimed that fentanyl was flooding Rikers because it was coming through the mail. However, the DOI recently issued a report showing that these drug tests were flawed and inaccurate in 85% of cases. DOI also issued a number of recommendations to prevent DOC staff from bringing in drugs. Which of these recommendations have been implemented or not implemented, and why?
So I mean, because we were focused on contracts, I don't have the DOI reports, but I just happen to know because I did work on some of them. I can't state specifically with the recommendations, but we have worked closely with DOI regarding implementation of some of those procedures. One of the things in particular that we saw with respect to the field test and the previous testimony from the commissioner was that we've since purchased more, I don't know what you call them, I'm sorry, but narcotic scanning devices that are up to 90% accurate versus the field tests, which were relatively not as accurate. So in addition to that, that's located in the mail trailer to kind of identify these drugs that come in. So we're using these more robustly, and they have a more accurate testing measure. The issue of scanning and preventing the contraband from coming into jails is a consistent issue that we have a relatively new security commissioner and a senior deputy commissioner that are looking into these measures and procedures consistently. So it's a nonstop issue of having to best address security in the jails. But again, on both of those DOI recommendations we worked on, and I think we accepted many of the recommendations, or if we had not, it was with respect to the field test in particular, it was because we had implemented these new scanning devices in, I think, almost all of our facilities.
And do you have any updated figures you could tell us about how these newer scanning technologies are? What are the findings that they're showing?
So we've used, not yet, because that was one of the things that we're going to work with DOI on, is actually doing a study to see the improved accuracy of the testing, because then that also requires a subsequent NYPD laboratory test. And for a number of reasons, just because of the volume of things that they're dealing with and issues with staffing that they have, it's not something that can be done pretty quickly, so we can't just send it to them and get it right back. It takes a period of time. Overall, we've based some of the more accuracy information on scientific studies that have been conducted around the country.
Okay, so you're saying you are going to do some in-house study of these machines before actually using them?
No, they're being utilized now, but we are also, to supplement that and to ensure, I actually just had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with DOI about doing a joint study to kind of look at these, the what we're recovering, what the testing shows, and then kind of gauge the accuracy of it. But I mean, it's industry widely accepted. These are used by the Transportation Security Administration at airports. Some of the types that we're using. So it's something that we have a higher level of confidence in, but we are going to continue to look into that.
Okay. We would love to get in the follow-up which of the recommendations you are implementing, which ones you aren't, and the rationale for why not.
Sure.
I think that was, oh, sorry, I'll turn it back over to Councilmember Juan.
For the Securus contract, there are multiple clauses in the contract that talks about confidentiality. The first is, there are many, but we're going to just list a few. The contractor agrees to maintain the confidentiality of such reports, information, or data by using a reasonable degree of care and using at least the same degree of care that the contractor uses to preserve the confidentiality of its own confidential information. The contractor agrees that such reports, information, data shall not be made available to any person or entity without the prior written approval of the department. The contractor shall restrict the access of confidential information to persons who have legitimate work-related purposes to access such information. The contractor agrees that it will instruct its officers, employees, and agents to maintain the confidentiality of all information required to be kept confidential by this agreement. A breach of this section 5.08 shall constitute a material breach of this agreement for which the department may terminate this agreement pursuant to Article 10. The department reserves any and all other rights to remedies in the event of an unauthorized disclosure. Notwithstanding any agreement provision of this agreement, the contractor shall not be relieved of the liability of the city for damages sustained by the city by virtues of the contractor's breach of the agreement for confidentiality and privacy, and the city may withhold payments to the contractor for the purpose of set off the amount of damage due to the city from this contractor, Securus. So can you tell us what contract payments have been withheld and what actions have been done for the breach of contract for privacy for Securus?
Are you talking about what breach of privacy are you referring to?
When we have reports of the conversations that were had, especially with legal service providers that should not have been recorded or surveilled?
So that's not a breach of the contract by Securus, right? So what happened there was a human error as to establishing what phone calls should be recorded or not. In these circumstances, that human error that we talked about, that the DOI spoke about and made recommendations on, was based on just their ability to record it. The actual phone calls were not provided by Securus to the district attorneys. That was provided by the Department of Correction to the district attorneys upon request by subpoena.
So you're saying that Securus has to record every single phone conversation?
That's what happens, yes.
And you're saying
Except for those that are on the do not call lists. Right.
And weren't they not supposed to record that conversation?
Right, but they didn't disclose the information. That's not the same type of breach that you're speaking of.
So you're saying
that was just a matter of what database was, and I should also point out that recorded conversations are kept for a limited period of time. I think it's 120 days, but I'm not certain. So even when, the privileged or unprivileged, they're only kept for a certain amount of time, and then when the Department of Correction turned that information over to the district attorney's office. So it was not a privacy or data breach.
So how could you say that that was not supposed to be recorded if you actively decided to turn that over to the district attorney's office? That was an intentional decision then.
It was an intentional decision based on the fact that we were not aware at the time that it was a privileged phone call because of the initial human error that has been addressed that caused those phone conversations to be recorded.
So for Securus, how do you expect them to know which ones that they can and cannot share to a third party?
But they don't share them to a third party.
So you're saying that they share all of them to you, to the department?
We are the owner of all of the data.
And the department is the one that's sharing it out?
That's right.
Even though you're not supposed to have certain data?
Well, we could have the phone calls. Right. We're talking about two different things. There's data that's secured and they're not allowed to disseminate it. We own and retain all of the data that is recorded in the Securus contract. What happens, and the practical, and I don't have technical terms, but the practical aspect of what happens is we have a universe of phone calls that are privileged and not recorded, and then we have a universe of calls that are recorded. In this instance, what happened in 2021 was that by human error, which has since been rectified, some phone calls, 200-something phone calls, were inadvertently recorded that should have been privileged. Therefore, they then appeared accessible to our personnel, DOC personnel, and when we received a subpoena from the district attorney's offices, they were turned over as part of what is necessary discovery in those cases. And then what happened from there is those recordings were turned over to the defense counsel, who pointed out that said, hey, these were conversations that we were having with our clients and not supposed to do it. So we're talking about not privacy breaches or otherwise. This is different. Privacy breach in that context of a contract is different than attorney-client privilege, right? So what we did is we took these inadvertently recorded attorney-client privilege calls, turned them over. That was not a breach on the part of Securus. This was a human error as to what should be recorded, what should not be recorded, but they did not directly disclose information to the district
So
attorney's
what is
office.
required of Securus? Are they supposed to record all conversations or no?
Yes.
Because 200-something conversations
No, I'm sorry,
is a
I
high
think I
amount of
answered this already.
conversations.
I said yes, except for those that are designated as privileged calls.
So for 200-something conversations, you're saying that they should not have been recording it, but they did anyway?
That's right.
And you're saying that even though they shared those conversations that weren't supposed to be recorded to you, that it still is not a breach of privacy?
It is not, because we own the data pursuant to the contract. All of that data is ours. It is not Securus's.
So I guess we need to have a bill to make sure that those conversations can't be recorded, that it should be illegal even for them to obtain it.
I think it would be helpful if you could describe on the record what the human error was.
Sure.
That might clear it up.
So as DOI reported, what happened was the Securus company was given these numbers to put on a do not record list. When they entered the numbers into the system, and this is my understanding of what happened, is what's reported, they put the numbers in as, for some reason, do not record, but it was site specific, meaning if you were in a particular building within our facilities, those conversations were not to be recorded. What had happened then is some of the persons in our custody moved to a different building, and then for that reason, because of whatever this marker they put on it had, was it became something that was now not privileged, meaning it was being recorded, and theoretically the admonishment was read. What we discovered in the auditing system, what Securus did, and they took immediate ownership of this, was that there needed to be all facilities marker or tag put into it. What has happened since is that now Securus has again a twofold supervisory and review line. So the number comes in, the technician or personnel puts it into the system. It is reviewed by a supervisor and then signed off by a supervisor, and then it goes in. But nonetheless, the tags now all read all facilities. So no matter where anyone moves in our facilities, that do not record marker moves with that associated number.
Thank you for explaining that.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one final question, then we're done. But before I ask my question, I just want to make sure that we have down all the items that we are needing in the follow-up. I believe there was some data on what items were taken off the menu from Keefe, and how often you're doing comparisons for outside pricing, like what is the actual process for initiating that and how often does it happen? We had some questions about the percentage of recorded calls that are turned over that actually lead to some kind of intervention or prevention of crime, and then what is handed over. No, sorry, just that part. And then the recommendations from the DOI study related to substance use and the testing. My final question is, I know that the ICE office was closed in 2015 on the island. To your knowledge, have there been any conversations about reopening this office?
We have not had any conversations about reopening the ICE office on Rikers Island.
Okay. Just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you so much for being here and answering questions. Appreciate it, and we'll follow up. I'm going to now dismiss the panel. Thank you. I now open.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Oh, sorry. Never mind. You are dismissed. I recognize Councilmember Stevens. I'm going to now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms in the back and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topics: contracted jail services and Introduction 835. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy to that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. Our first panel is Melanie Dominguez, King Downing, and Tanya Krupat. Melanie Dominguez, King Downing, and Tanya Krupat. You can begin when ready. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair Nurse and members of the Criminal Justice Committee and Committee on Contracts for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Tanya Krupat. I'm the Vice President of Policy and Advocacy at the Osborne Association. Osborne is one of the largest and oldest criminal justice service organizations in the state, and we provide services on Rikers Island. Thank you for focusing on contracted jail services. Osborne was among the 5 providers who lost their contracts at the end of June 2023. The elimination of the targeted approach jail-based services providers, through which 5 community-based organizations serve thousands of people in Rikers each year, and this has had a devastating impact for those inside. The Target Approach program provided core foundational services across the entire DOC system. All of Osborne's services inside DOC jails, including visiting support services to people at Rose M. Singer Center and their children. We provided elder services and transitional planning, and we continue to provide a very limited amount of services, but even those are affected by the loss of these others. The services that were eliminated, we served 1,700 people in individual and group sessions, offering more than 12,700 group sessions per year. In the interest of time, the benefits of programming are enormous and have ripple effects that benefit officers, families, and communities. While DOC currently has 4 RFPs out, these do not replace the contracted services that were eliminated, and there was no notification that these were finally issued 10 months after the funding was announced. Providers are also partners to the department, which can improve the well-being of everyone. We can work together to catch worrisome signs and address concerns. For example, our staff recently headed off an escalating situation with a gentleman at EMTC who had a previously unknown and serious food allergy and then was afraid to eat because of it. We were able to contact a program's captain, and he was switched to a special diet. We were only able to do this because of the relationships we built. Programs are extra eyes and ears to avoid dangerous situations and prevent emergencies and even death. We thank you for your focus on this and improving the conditions on Rikers Island. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you coming and testifying. I'm going to oscillate to Zoom. Kelly Grace Price.
Oh, hi. I think I'm just observing today as a reporter
Okay.
in my capacity. I'm not testifying.
Okay.
Thank you.
Siobhan Hunziker? Not here. Jason Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you, Chair Nurse, Chair Wan, members of the Criminal Justice and Contracts Committee for holding this important hearing. My name is Jason Rodriguez. I am a policy associate at the Legal Action Center, and I am formerly incarcerated. I spent 24 years incarcerated at the age of 18. In 2023, New York City Department of Corrections abruptly cut $17 million from programs at Rikers, programs that provided essential support to detained individuals. These weren't just any programs. They provided people with evidence-based on care, including treatment for substance use disorder and trauma, to protect their health and keep them alive. By cutting them, the administration not only disregarded the needs, but actively put lives at risk. Even with these facts, the administration claimed the Department of Corrections could provide the same services at a lower cost with correctional officers. That assumption was not just wrong, it was reckless and harmful. Replacing skilled service providers with security personnel has left people without access to meaningful programs, setting them up for abuse, neglect, or even death. Within the first 4 months of these cuts, group-based programming at Rikers dropped by 29%, and one-on-one support fell by over 30%. People were left without meaningful engagement, fueling tensions, despair, and instability, outcomes that are well documented. After nearly a year and a half, DOC is now requesting proposals to restore some of the programs that had been cut. While this was a necessary step, it is still not enough. The full restoration of funding is critical to ensuring that the people receive support they need. These RFPs offer approximately $3 million less than the full amount that was cut in 2023. Furthermore, the fact that these services are only now being put back out for bid underscores a much deeper issue. DOC was never capable of providing them on its own. The RFPs released by DOC made clear that when community-based providers were defunded, even the most basic care, substance misuse treatment, trauma-informed therapy, and transitional planning disappeared, leaving people without critical support. This is not just about funding or contracts. The conditions described in these RFPs, instances of self-harm, lack of basic mental health.
Thank you. Time's expired.
Services. Thank you.
Siobhan Hunziker, I think you're back on.
Yes, thank you.
You may begin.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Nurse and members of the Criminal Justice Committee and the Committee on Contracts for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Siobhan Hunziker, and I'm a mitigation specialist at the Osborne Association. Osborne is one of the largest and oldest criminal justice service organizations in the state. Our services reach over 14,000 individuals each year, assisting them and their families in navigating arrest, courts, incarceration on Rikers and state prisons, and reentry. We advocate for decarceration and expanding alternatives to detention and incarceration, and we support closing Rikers. We also advocate for improved conditions inside Rikers and for our clients. Osborne's Court Advocacy Services is our longest running program. It's staffed by social workers and mental health professionals whose purpose is to provide mitigating factors to defense attorneys whose clients would not otherwise benefit from the critical social work services in their criminal defense. I work on our Second Look initiative, through which we provide mitigation services specifically to women and gender-expansive people detained on Rikers. Thank you for focusing today on contracted jail services. This includes contracted mitigation specialists and those who work to help people leave Rikers as soon as possible, which serves the interest of public safety in many ways, both human and economic. In 2024, Court Advocacy Services spared 324 clients from over 1,411 years of incarceration, a cost savings of over $162 million. While I urge you to expand funding for mitigation and ATI programs, I also want to share some pressing concerns regarding people whose health and mental health needs are not being met while in DOC custody. Please consider the following. Rikers is New York City's largest provider of psychiatric care and one of the country's largest mental health providers. In 2023,
Thank you. Time's expired.
Thank you. We now have two in person, Raul Rivera and Christopher Leon Johnson.
Good afternoon. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I'm speaking on support intro 825. I'm gonna explain why Sandy, Chair Sandy, I'm supposed to do another, but I saw the bill. But I request that you, as a chair, talk to your committee council to amend that bill to add credit cards and debit cards that only could be used for purchases only, no ATM withdrawals. Not only you have to amend the bill to lift the cap from 200, you need to lift the cap to lift it to the unlimited amount of money, and you got to give them a certain amount of days to spend the money. After that, it gets sent back to the DOC, like let's say by 90 days to spend the money. It should be with debit cards and credit cards instead of just checks, because the problem with checks is that there's a lot of check fraud these days. There's a lot of people you never know who work for the Postal Service that steals checks. They know that the former incarcerated, and I don't know what's the new word these days because the city council awoke, we don't know what to say, but formerly incarcerated individuals are so vulnerable to identity fraud, because majority of the time they homeless and stuff like that, and they have no legal, their address might not be the address that's on file. They have a big vulnerability of getting their check stolen. So it shouldn't be issued by check unless it's a pickup at the location they was arrested at Rikers Island, or you send out a check. Put it on a credit card, like how when you turn in guns to the DA's office, you get like a bank card that can only be used inside, only be used for purchases on like buying food and stuff like that. With the tracking, so you know what they're buying. We could use for data. You can use for data for later on down the run. But this bill should be amended. I support it, but you need to amend the bill for credit cards, debit cards, and virtual cards instead of just straight checks, because identity theft. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Raul Rivera. I'm a TLC driver and a TLC driver advocate. We have to get creative when it comes to videoing. It's our right. Intro 825, I believe it is. We are against it. Hold on a second. Intro, 825. I'm against it. If you do the crime, do the time. Once you leave prison, you should get a bus ticket home and start over again. The fact that we call this committee criminal justice, I think is pretty comical. I don't know why this is defending the criminal. Does that means defending the criminal justice. The crimes that are happening here in New York are congestion pricing, that's a crime. The city of Yes is a crime. And the biggest criminal in this city council is the speaker, who endorses this stuff. Our council members do not speak for us, but you do speak for the criminals. I don't even want to be here. I don't know why I'm here. I'm just repulsed by you guys. The common sense, what is it? The oppressive caucus? That's what you guys are. You guys are oppressive caucus. I know you think everything is funny, but these testimonies are important because many people are afraid to speak up, and we're not. So we let New Yorkers know, and we let you know that this committee is a kangaroo committee. It shouldn't even exist.
Thank you. If we have inadvertently missed anyone who has registered to testify today and has yet to be called, please speak with a sergeant, or if you're remote, use the Zoom hand function. We will be called on you in the order that your hand has been raised. Seeing no one, we are going to close out this Criminal Justice Committee and thank everybody for testifying. Thank you.